Hey, hey, little test on the volume here. Hey, hey, little test on the... All right, gonna start pretty soon. YouTube's up first. If you guys are watching, coming soon. Okay, game time. Hey, hey. I'm gonna wait to get to my list here. You guys want to hang out for a sec? Might hit a couple shots. I'll get it going in a couple minutes. Got a pretty good list of things going. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9 things to talk about. 9 things to go through. If there's any questions, that come through, I hope I get to see it. I'm going to try and watch. Some pretty good questions, a lot about practice. Not too many about the swing itself, but, lots of stuff about some practice and, how to take what you get in a lesson and move forward. That's kind of one of the things. So I'm going to start right away with that one. So how to practice, like how do you take what it is that you're doing and take it to the driving range, right? Like you can either take a lesson or you've never taken a lesson before and you want to go to the driving range and you want to figure out how it is you're going to get better. Like what is it that you're going to work on the range? And without knowing what it is that you're doing in your swing, I would recommend definitely target practice. I mean, it sounds redundant, but why wouldn't you practice, targets? If you're going to play golf, let's say that, you're whatever handicap, it doesn't really matter. It's a pretty good chance that if you're playing a regular golf course, you're going to have a lot of 9 irons, 8 irons, 7 irons, 6 irons into the green. So why wouldn't you practice those a whole bunch? Pick targets, take 5 golf balls and go and tackle a target. Go and see what you can do and pepper a flag for 5 shots. Then change your club. One thing I try to avoid people doing is going to the driving range and taking one golf club and just smashing balls at one target the whole time. If you're trying to hit the flag, change clubs a whole bunch of times. But if you're trying to work on your move, it might be a good time to take one club, practice, get a feel for it. You don't necessarily even have to hit the ball. Just go ahead and practice away, take some practice swings, work on the feel of the action, and you might even want to tee it up. Tee it up nice and low, take a shot, work on your move that way. Build a little confidence by getting that ball on the tee. So when I build practice sessions for my players, most of the time it has a little bit to do mechanically, right? Mechanically, we're trying to fix something in the swing, or they're worried about something in their game. Oh, I can't hit my wedges close, or I have trouble hitting my driver. Well, go to the range and practice that. I mean, you don't have to have a perfect scenario. You don't have to have a perfect practice plan. If you have something that you want to do and you take it to the range to go and do it, you're pretty much moving ahead. So target practice is a big thing. Going through your whole bag is another thing, but also leave the driving range. Get off the range, go to the chipping area and the putting green and spend half of your time there. Regardless of your level of play or level of score, you should probably hit the putting green and chipping green and work your way around there. Different shots, high shots, low shots, short putts, long putts, ones that break a certain direction. What you're going to find is you'll notice that there's areas in your game that have holes in it that you're not very strong at, and that'll show up. So practice those a little bit more. So when it comes to a practice plan, it's pretty individual for the golfer. Everyone's got to kind of do things differently. But for the average golfer, for an average practice plan, go to the range, hit X number of balls, 5, 6 balls with one club, change clubs. Go do something different. So you've got 14 clubs in your bag. Try and use them all when you practice. That's probably the best tip that I could give you. Another great one had to do with transition. A golf pro actually asked me, how do you start the downswing using your legs? And it's not easy to do if the backswing's not all that great. If your backswing has a little bit too much momentum or things get into the wrong spot, your body's going to want to get that golf club back into play. And most of the time back into play means using your hands, using your arms, doing something to get this golf club from not a great spot into something that's going to be useful. But most of the time, it's going to be too late. So if you've got a decent backswing, if you've got something that, is somewhat controlled, I'm not talking about position, I'm talking a little bit more about tempo and rhythm. And if you've got something that's a little bit more controlled, I would recommend getting to a point where you can feel as though that you stop about 3/4 of the way back in your swing and really try and engage your legs. Get your legs into it. Feel your legs. The biggest thing I talk about is the soles of my feet. If I can feel as though that I get to the top of my swing and I can start feeling my feet push into the soles, whether it's pushing straight down, whether it's giving a little bit of a twist if I'm trying to get some better rotation, I'm feeling my feet. So if I can get to the top of my swing all the way up here without giving too much great stuff away. If I can get to the top of my swing and feel as though that my feet have started the motion, that my feet are moving into the ground and I'm trying to get myself into a different position, that's probably the best way that I could talk about transitioning with the legs. So one of the things that I really like to think about is that, you know, when I get to the top of my swing, I want to feel as though that my legs are moving toward the target. Not necessarily both legs, but making sure that my front leg starts to move out toward the target. You know, we hear about sliding or moving or shifting our weight. Well, the first thing I want to feel as though that shifts is that knee. I want to throw that thing out there. There's lots of talk about the knee kind of making a bit of a little circle going around this way to help the body, but what you'll notice is that if I take it to the top of my swing and I feel that left knee start to flare out, just that left side, yeah, transition with the legs, right, Mike? If I'm trying to feel as though that left side, that left knee starts to make a little bit of a circle, starts to move out toward the target, look what's happening with my upper body. It's all moving with it. So I'm trying to feel that, you know, as a concept, I like to get into people's heads so they start to think a little bit. I like to think that my front knee has an eyeball, and that eyeball at the top of my swing, it wants to start to look for the target. And if I can get my knee out toward the target, I start to really open up my body a little bit. If my foot starts to twist a little bit into the ground, not really a big deal. That's how we're using the ground. Get a little bit of twist going, get that knee flaring out a little bit, and all of a sudden, we start to get the body moving. Rather than anything that's trying to get the golf club back down to the golf ball. There's lots of place for the arms to give speed in the swing. I mean, the arms have to come back down. The faster you do it, the farther you're going to hit it. But it has to happen at the right time. So, you know, there's lots of talk about taking the arms out of the swing and don't pull down on the golf club. Well, there's not a golf pro on the planet that doesn't pull down on the golf club. So we want to make sure we do that, but at the right time, in the right order, and most of the time after our legs and our feet have kind of got into the motion. So another question that I had was, how do we avoid a swing that comes too far from the outside? I work with a lot of players where, you know, the problem is that the swing is too much from the inside. You know, there's lots of information out there on the internet that's really trying to get us to move a body in a certain way that really almost gets the club under plane, too low to the ground, too shallow, and throws the club out to the right. But for those players that are still struggling with the golf club coming from the outside a little bit, there's a good chance that you're starting your swing with your upper body. And I'll tell you a good story. I was down at Bay Hill about 3 years ago now, on the driving range, and I got a chance to run into Jimmy Nelford. If you don't know Jim Nelford and you're a Canadian, go do some work. Because Jim is one of the best golfers Canada's ever seen, awesome ball striker, and now he's into teaching. And Jim talks about center of gravity. And center of gravity is a little bit in terms of what it is that you feel your center of gravity is. And he talks about it being low for good players and high for worse players. So what I mean by a high center of gravity, in Jimmy's terms, is that a lot of the squeeze and the pressure and all the stuff that we're trying to do is an upper body thing. And you can see that in the golfer when they start to get all of this motion happening. Where if you were to set up to the golf shot and feel as though that you can, you know, your internal center of gravity, get that really low, drop it down all the way to, you know, your feet below your knees, all of a sudden that center of gravity is a little bit lower. It frees things up to work up here. But for any golfer that really loses their balance, there's a good chance your center of gravity is too high and you're activating things too much from this way, and it's like trying to shoot a cannon from a skateboard. You're not going to last very long. So trying to feel as though that center of gravity is a little bit lower allows the things the furthest from the center of gravity to swing a little bit more freely. So when it comes to that outside in thing, I think it has a lot to do with where the player is holding their pressure or holding their ideas, rather than just the golf club coming out this way and across the golf ball. I mean, there's a lot of tour pros that have a path that goes outside in. It doesn't mean they're over the top. It just means that the club path at the bottom goes from the outside to the in, and there's a good chance they're going to hit a fade, or if you're Carl Peterson, you're going to aim 30 yards to the right and hit a pull. Big deal. But the path going from the outside in or the inside out, I mean, that's very variable for the golfer. As long as the path stays within a reasonable range and the ball can start on line without curving too much, things are pretty good. So if it's a drastic over the move, you got some things to work on. If it's a little bit, just get over it, play the fade. So another great question was, why do I hit thin shots? And why does my golf club come near the ground and hit the golf ball or not hit the ground? You know, the thin shot is basically where we hit it low on the club face, and it doesn't really have a good feel. Like, it's gonna like vibrate through your hands a whole bunch. So one of the things that I've noticed is that when people hit thin shots, it doesn't have anything to do with the golfer being too far from the ground and they can't get down to it. It has a little more to do with the golfer coming in to an impact spot and pulling in too much and pulling the golf club up and in. And most of the golfers you're going to see that hit it thin are going to, it's not lifting your head, Zach. It's when you're coming into the golf ball, bending the elbows, pulling the grip in. You'll notice that when I bend my elbows, what happens to my wrist angles? They throw out. The grip gets further from the ground. I hit the ball thin, and most of those golfers are going to have a finished position where the club is like almost in their belly. It really gets close. So one of the things I like to do as a practical fix for a golfer that hits it thin is, first of all, learn to thump the ground. Get that golf club right down into the ground. But you'll notice that when I get it into the ground, look how far that is from me. My arms are a little longer. I'm starting to create a bit of a wider arc to my swing on the way through. The best players have the widest arc on the way through with their full swings. And the worst players are pulling this thing in, and what you're going to notice on the follow through is this elbow starts to flare out through the other side. Not a very good action to the hands, but it's not going to let that golf club have the most leverage on the downswing to kick this club out and end up being a little bit wider. So lots of stuff goes into the thin shots, and I think it has a little bit more to do with your concept and your idea of what's supposed to happen throughout the downswing rather than what's happening at impact. Because there's a good chance that, you know, if you're pulling in and you're hitting it thin, things are kind of broken earlier on. Okay, this is a really good one by my buddy JD, the new golf coach at Earlham College. Cheers, thanks Peninsula Ridge for some wine tonight. Like this stuff. JD had a really good question with regards to how do you stay engaged and positive during an indoor lesson? It's not easy to do because, you know, it's kind of boring standing inside for a couple hours. But one of the best things I like about Foresight Sports is it gives me a chance to actually get a skills challenge going on that's customizable. I can build it. So after we work on some drills, we'll set up a customized game where people can hit some shots and actually hit some targets. Right, so 20 different targets, 3 shots per target, and all the targets are different yardages, but all those targets have different size targets. 5 points for small, 3 and 1, and I can build a skills assessment completely around the PGA Tour stats. So you think about a PGA Tour player from 150 yards out from the green in the fairway. You know, they're going to hit it to an average of, call it 18 feet. And they're going to hit the green 4 to 5 times. 3 to 4 times, probably even better. So I'm going to set up some targets based on those numbers to see how you can compare with them. So, you know, 18 feet would be 5 points. You know, 20 feet would be 3 points. 22 feet would be 1 point. Anything outside 22 feet, you got to get better. So these are types of things where I can stay engaged with the golfer. We can work on some drills. We can hit some golf shots. And then we can actually get some real practice going, to where people are actually hitting shots to a target like it's real. And, you know, sometimes, I mean, when I was at the golf lab way back in the day, Liam Mucklow's brainchild of an awesome performance center, I used to see him people get on a speed bike, and they'd rip around on a speed bike for 20 minutes, and then they'd go hit some shots. Like, what a great way to get someone out of their comfort zone and then have to hit a golf shot. So I really like that idea. So a lot of the stuff that I do is, you know, we'll look at all the skills, we'll look at all the different things that they're trying to do, and I'll start pointing out numbers. Hey, like, you're halfway through, and I haven't seen anybody with this many points before, and all of a sudden it's like, oh wow, like, I'm really good. And then they start shanking, and then whatever happens, right? It's like real golf, right? You had your best round ever with two holes to go, and what are you doing? You're thinking about your score, thinking about how to do it, right? It becomes real world stuff. So when I start to think about the indoor session, you know, depending on how long it's going to be a lot of mechanics, right? We're not trying to really improve everything about the golf swing in one spot. We're trying to get a feeling of what's new, what's different. We're going to look at video. We're going to take a bunch of data, right? It's like going to the doctor. You're trying to get a big analysis of what you're doing and get a good idea on how to practice when you leave here. However, I'm in Canada. It's cold. We've been on lockdown for like 9 weeks, so inside is kind of a big deal. So when we stay inside, I'm trying to make sure that people are staying engaged, they're staying focused, they're doing all these things that's allowing them to continue, working on what they need to work on. And as the lesson goes on, it's just like as the round goes on. Let's hope that the performance stands up. Speed, awesome one. JD, coach at Earlham College down in Indiana. Again, another question. I think he had like 3 of these. Speed, like how do you create speed in a golf swing? I would have said, I did say this 6 or 7 years ago, that it's very rare that someone comes to me for a lesson and improves their club speed. They'll improve their ball speed because they're going to hit it more solid or they get their money back. But if they swing the club faster, that's a big pattern change. And a long time ago, I wasn't really educated or informed on how we can get someone to swing it faster. Now we've got the tools. Now we've got the ideas. We've got the things that actually can produce more speed to the golf club and more speed to the swing. So there's a couple things that I want to talk about. I'm not going to give all the tricks away, but obviously the first thing we can do to create more speed, take the club back farther, right? The farther that the end of this golf club travels, the more speed you can put into it. Pretty simple. That's rule number 1. How much force and how much energy you throw into it is number 2. So if you look at Bryson right now, right? Bryson went from a golfer who would, take the backswing nice and smooth. Notice this nice little wrist set going on right here. And that's all changed. Bryson's now in a stage in his swing where he's yanking this club back so hard to pump energy into the system. You can see that he's almost here before he starts to set the club. A longer set isn't just a mechanical thing. He didn't just say, hey, I'm going to set the club later. He actually tried to put more into this backswing and rip the club back harder. And if you see it in slow motion, you can actually see him pull this club back so hard that it almost looks like he lags the club on the way back. So the more energy you can pump into the system early, the more energy you have, the more force you have, the more chance you have of making this club move faster. So number 1, make the butt of the club move farther. Number 2, pump more energy into the system early. Number 3, transition harder. Just make sure that when you're taking this club back that you change direction harder. That twisting kind of torque that we can put in our body is going to have a big effect on how much we can pump energy into this system, into this golf club on the downswing. So the harder you can change direction, the better it is. So when we think about, I'm going to make a nice, easy, smooth little Fred Couples swing where I feel like I stop at the top, move up a tee block because you're not going to hit it very far. So we want to make sure that you hit the ball hard by changing direction hard. Now, it comes with a little bit of, diminishing returns in the point that if you get this golf club back into a spot that isn't in a good position, then when you change direction, it might have a negative effect on you. So if you're looking to do number 3, which is change direction hard, you better make sure that all of this stuff in the backswing has been set in a decent spot in order for you to do that without the golf club tumbling or pulling and just getting way offline. So if you want speed, this is other than just go ahead and try and swing harder. You don't know how far you're going to hit it until you try. So swing harder. So we want to make sure that, first of all, that you understand that we're trying to make sure that we can pump energy into the system early, that we can get the butt of the club, or your glove, if you have a red rooster glove and you can get this thing all the way up and get that rooster to go pretty far, from here you're going to be able to pump more energy into that system on the way down. So speed is a function of you swinging harder and you swinging longer. Kind of simple. Okay. The next 2 are pretty good. I'm going to start with one from my friend Andrew. What's the big deal about hitting a draw from an open stance? And I think it's Tom Lehman hiding behind Andrew's screen name. But Tom Lehman was, obviously, he's a world-class golfer, multiple winner on the PGA Tour, and he had an open stance, and he still hit draws. So think about this. The draw comes from the fact that the face is closed to the path. Regardless of what the path is, the face is closed to the path, that thing's going to draw. So if Tom's the kind of player that takes it back and has a move where he swings the club way out to the right, if he was to aim square, that ball would start down the first baseline and maybe curve back halfway to the middle. But what Tom would try and figure out to do is he would have this body aligned a little bit more open to neutralize his big in-to-out path relative to the target line. So if you swing out a whole bunch, the more you open the path, the more you open your stance, the more your in-to-out path starts to balance itself out with the target line. And that's how it works really good. I wouldn't say that it's a big deal. I don't know too many players that play draws with an open stance. Most of the players that swing too far into out try and neutralize that into out. But I would say that, you know, if you have a swing pattern and you're not going to take a lesson and you're not going to change and you don't want to and things are just fine most of the time, which is like 90% of golfers, just open your stance a little bit, maybe play the ball a little more back in your stance, and that ball's going to shoot out to the right, curve back to the left, kind of make it easy for you. So I would say that an open stance draw is, the open stance is a band-aid for someone that doesn't want to change their swing path. Pretty simple. Now, my last question came from my buddy Charles in the UK, who's on lockdown more than Ontario, so hey, lockdown brother. And he talked about pattern building, which I think is a really good one. And this is going to need another help from Peninsula Ridge. Thanks very much for the support tonight, Liquid Chatter. I think that when we start to look at pattern building, when we start to look at how it is that we're going to change your swing, right? You come for a lesson, change your swing. The fancy term nowadays is change your pattern. Cool. You've got something that's ingrained in you, which is 100% based on your concept. What you think you should do to the golf club shows up in your swing. So 9 out of 10 times, my golf lessons, there you go. My golf lessons completely involve changing your concept. What do you think you should do? No. Try this. And then from there, we have to start talking about things to get through the player's filter. How do you get through to the golfer to say that, hey, the world isn't flat, it's round, let's talk about it, right? And hey, sometimes it doesn't work. I've had many players come and go, you know what? No, I don't believe you. I don't have to do that. That's not right. I remember this was my favorite line that I've ever heard. Golf pros in Florida aren't teaching what you're teaching, Nick. I don't know what that means. But if we start to understand the concept and what's actually supposed to happen in the golf swing, there's a good chance you're going to change your motion, you're going to change your pattern. So when I'm looking at a golfer, you know, I'll give an example of a gentleman that I taught yesterday who thought he had a great swing. You know, brought the club back, transferred his weight forward, did a rotation, had a great release, finished the swing in balance. Yeah, but the ball didn't go anywhere. It was short, right? Backswing was kind of short. You know, from there, hey, rule number one, you want to hit it farther? Crank it back, right? This all came down to concept. And so once we tackle the concept, and this was great because this golfer was like, oh, yeah, okay, my buddies tell me that I don't take it back far enough. You're now telling me I don't take it back far enough. Cool. How do I take it back far enough? So we did all that stuff, but, you know, that starts to get kind of easy, right? Okay, you did it. Now what? How do you come out of that new position? That becomes the lesson. So when I'm building a pattern for a golfer, I'm deciding what to do in a golf lesson. That's a better way to put it. Where do I go when I start a golf lesson? The first thing I do is, what can I change the smallest piece to have the biggest impact? Right? What's the smallest thing that I can change in order to do that? And I think that if I start to look at the golfer's grip and I start to look at how they turn, you know, how they move, how they can move, from there, it's all about, like, what can I put in? What's going to have a biggest impact over the next hour or, you know, in my case in the summer, 4 hours? How do I make them change? And I think the first thing I look at is how can we adjust the club face? How can I get the club face into a bit of a better spot? Is that a wrist thing? Is that an arm thing? Is that a turn thing? I don't know. One of those things is going to work. We're going to get the club face on a better line. And I would say that, you know, 8 out of 10 times, there's a good chance that the golfer needs to get this club face more like that. Okay? We fix the club face first. And once we get the club face going, I want to try and get that club face to move faster. So it's about club face first, make them move faster, and then once that happens and they start to see the ball take off a little bit farther, not only from contact, but probably because they took the 8-iron and turned it into a 6-iron a little bit better, right? All of a sudden they start to smile, they start to have the belief, and you've got them like you've just showed them a magic trick. You ever been showed a magic trick? Like, as soon as that person does the magic trick and you look up at them in that stare, you've got that person for 20 or 30 seconds. They will believe anything you say. And that's what I see in a golf lesson. Let's fix the face. Let's get the club hitting the ball a little bit more solid or better, whatever you want to call it. And then from there it goes farther. They're going to look at you like, wow, like that's amazing. What do you have next? Do you have any stock tips? Right? They're listening. So I'm trying to get the understanding to the golfer to how are we going to change that pattern? How are we going to change the smallest things? And then from there I turn into a cheerleader. Hey, good. Oh, that wasn't very good. Do it again. And I'm pretty blunt. So if they're not doing it right, we're going to scrap it. We're going to say, okay, hold on a sec. Clearly there was some misunderstanding with what we're talking about. Let's get back to it. Let's get back to the understanding of what it is we're trying to do. And then we regroup and we go forward again. And that's why I really avoid that 1 hour golf lesson, because why is 1 hour the time frame to fix a golf swing? Why? If you want a golf lesson and you want to improve your game, it should not be at the mercy of your watch. So my golf school's in the summer, 4 hours long, which is probably a little bit too much, but I find that 3 hours isn't enough. So something in there gives me a chance to help the golfer fix the club face, let them practice for a bit, then come back, make sure it's right, give them some speed, let them practice, and then come back again. And we can layer these pieces over and over and over until the point that, hey, I get it, I understand it, they can repeat it, things are good. But in an hour, do you think someone's going to be able to change their concept, change their pattern, go home and do it? There's almost no chance. So I don't do 1 hour golf lessons. I don't do one-off 1 hour golf lessons. I'm trying to get the people into understanding how it takes to change a pattern. And it's a lot of fun changing a pattern, because when you start to see the club face change and the ball takes off and you start to see the shaft start moving faster and it goes even farther, people start to change their score pretty quick. You know, imagine that you hit your 8 iron 140 yards, just as 8 iron in general, and all of a sudden you leave here and you're hitting 155 or 160 yards. So you've increased your club speed by, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 miles an hour. That translates through the game. All of a sudden you hit your driver farther, so you're 10 yards closer to the green. That distance to the green, you're hitting it farther, so now all of a sudden you're hitting one less club into the green. When you increase your club speed and you get the ball to go farther, you get twice the gains moving into the green. Because if you take a look at any chart that's out there or anything that's made by the PGA Tour, you know, the guys that hit it the farthest are most likely the guys that are going to shoot the lowest scores, which relates to more money. So there's a huge correlation between how fast you swing the golf club, how fast the ball goes, and how well you score. So when it comes to the speed and it comes to, you know, developing a golfer, you know, it's not going to be about, okay, we got to get your grip in a certain way and you have to stand a certain way and all this stuff. You know, we might get into that down the road, but the second that a golfer moves the club away, their setup position's done. So I really bypass all of the cosmetic stuff and I try and get into how do we get the club face into a better position somewhere on the way back, make sure that that club face somehow gets maintained on the way through. And then from there, how do we get the body to move faster? How do we do things to engage those 4 things that create the most speed once the club face is square? So that's my idea on pattern development. I think that, you know, it's I'm lucky that I get to work with golfers that come to me for an extended period of time. So there is a pattern change. There's a concept change. There's a continual talk on what it is that we're trying to get to. And the aha moments, or the, oh, I get it, those moments happen sporadically. It could happen right away. It could happen 2 weeks later. But it's going to happen if we talk about the right things, if the feedback after the session is the right way, and the feedback is implemented in the right manner. So, you know, I think that when it comes to that pattern development and changing a swing, it's about my information that I'm able to give, my cheerleading aspects on making sure that we can kind of, you know, stick with it. But it has a lot to do with the golfer trying to implement these changes. And I think that when we can get all those things together, we start to see the gains. You know, one of the best things that I found transitioning from that 1 hour a week private lesson model to getting people to come for 4 hours at a time every couple weeks or every 3 weeks, you know, I'm starting to see that if they come to a school on a Friday, you know, by Tuesday or Wednesday, they're playing the best golf they've ever had. They get that career low. The feedback that I get through an email saying, hey, I shot my best round ever 5 days after I came to your school, that's really good. So what I find with that is that in order to change the pattern development, your swing change or whatever, if we can stick with that and get that in a longer period of time, it ends up sticking a little bit longer. So that was a really good question from my buddy Charles in the UK. That's all the questions that I've had so far. I think I might have a couple here. Someone has asked. When holding a club, am I supposed to have a tight grip or loose grip, or does it matter? Well, you know what? Like, you're going to be hitting golf shots. You're swinging a golf club, and the grip that you have it set up is complete. The grip pressure that you have it set up is completely gone by the time you move the golf club. This golf club bends in the downswing. It bends. So how are you holding the club light and this metal stick bending, right? So you got to hold the club tight. I mean, I'm not talking about 10 out of 10, like as hard as you can do it, and the grip pressure goes all the way up until like up to your face. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about holding the club strong enough to control it, but you know, everything above the wrists and the hands are somewhat loose, and they're still able to be mobile. I think the idea of hold the club tight, or you know, the old saying, hold the club like a live bird. Well, if I'm going to hold the club like a live bird, that bird's flying over the Grand Canyon and I'm holding on for dear life. All right, I want to hold this club hard, tight, 8 out of 10. And if I start that way, great. But by the time that club moves, I guarantee every golfer on the planet is holding this club extremely tight because it's not going to bend any other way. So when it comes to grip pressure, give it a good squeeze. Don't let go of it. Hold it like it's your money. Will buying really expensive golf clubs automatically make me shoot par? 100% it will. Go to Modern Golf, get those fancy PXGs or Titleist Concepts, and you're guaranteed to shoot 10 shots better. I mean, at least your friends would like your stuff, right? So, no, golf clubs aren't going to have that big of a difference on you, the type of club. However, you know, like the shaft, sure, the shaft has a lot to do with the spin rate and the launch angle, and, you know, can you feel this golf club kick? But the club head itself is going to be pretty good. I'm rocking these brand new Callaway Apex MBs. They're the sexiest clubs I've seen this year. And I love these. They're nice and small. I like to play a blade. I like to feel the golf ball in the middle. If it doesn't hit the middle, I want that feel. But for a golfer that might not have, you know, the perfect impact and hit the ball solid every time, you might need something bigger. So when it comes to the size of the golf club, you know, that's going to be relative to what it is you're doing. But regardless of what you're doing, you know, go to a fitter and make sure you try a bunch of stuff, whether it's a dynamic gold shaft or a Project X shaft or steel fiber. I'm just naming all the true tempers. KBS, right? Try the different shafts, try the different heads, and you know what? Try different lengths, because it's amazing how the length of the shaft can have a big deal on your feel, on the swing weight of the club. That's how you feel the weight of the club in the swing. That has a bunch to do with how you're interacting with the ground. So I'm not a club fitter. I'm a putter fitter, not a club fitter. I leave that to the pros, and I'm in Toronto, so, I mean, Modern Golf, TXG, can you really get any better than those guys? So I leave it to them. They take care of it. Give me some feedback. We'll go from there. Oh, what are the cons of playing a lighter shaft? I would say that the cons of playing a lighter shaft is that you're probably going to swing the club maybe a little faster, which might be weird to hear, swing the club faster as a con, but you might not be able to get the right, you know, momentum. You might not be able to get the right feel of the golf club. The lighter the shaft, I mean, the head's staying the same, the grip's not changing weight, so the lighter the shaft, the more the balance point starts to move up closer to the grip. So it's going to give you a different feel. Shaft, the weight of the shaft has a lot to do with your feel on where that balance point's going to end up. And I think that that's a big aspect when it comes to a better player. If you're a new player to the game, the lighter the shaft, again, the faster you're probably going to swing. You might need that. But as you start to develop some feel in the game, I know that I haven't met a great player that likes to go to a lighter shaft. The better the player, they feel as though that they want a heavier shaft. Now, I can't say that's an absolute. It's just kind of my feedback, what I've seen over the years, and myself. I choose a heavier shaft, Dynamic Gold S400 Tour shaft, and I think that, you know, buck 125 grams, give or take a little bit. I've played around with shafts that are 110 grams, and I can really feel the difference. Not really a big preference for me. Is grip size a preference or a science? Oh, Travis. I would say that grip size has a lot to do with, first of all, how you hold the golf club. right? How you choose to hold the golf club has a big effect on your grip size. Hand size has a big effect. I've put many adults, 2 guys that are in the room right now listening, I'm sure, I put adults into junior grips. 1 layer of tape, the smallest grip possible, you know, because the fingers are small and the palm might be small. So from there, we want to try and feel as though that you can actually get everything around the grip. So, you know, grip size is definitely going to be a preference. I probably couldn't go grip size over the internet. However, I could definitely recommend the right grip size if I see what you're up to. Thoughts on 1 length clubs? Bro, I've never tried it. Nobody in my stable has them. Modern Golf sold 2 sets in their entire life. I don't know. Next. All right, I had 1 more question. Yeah, mid-size and 2 wraps. That's exactly what I'm going with there. All right, so that's all the list that was there. Any questions while I take a Peninsula Ridge break? Anything else? I love the idea of you guys giving me questions because I have no idea what to start talking about. Yeah, this will save. I'll have it on my feed. I'll try and save it somehow, somewhere. It's also streaming live on YouTube right now, which will automatically save it to my YouTube channel, so you can check it out there, Cam. Yeah, I don't think I have, of course, JD. X Factor. So X Factor is a whole bunch to do. I mean, that's a Jim McLean thing. Jim McLean, yes, Osprey Valley. Jim McLean is one of the best instructors of our lifetime. Love that guy. You know, Jim is the #1 golf school in the US. I like to call myself the #1 golf school in Canada, only because I'm the only one doing golf schools in Canada. And Jim McLean had this awesome thing, which comes to X Factor. X Factor is the difference between your hip turn and your shoulder turn, right? So if the hips go back 45 degrees and the shoulders go back 90 degrees, you got a difference of 45 degrees in there. Now, it's not so much about the backswing stuff. If you look at a guy like Bubba Watson, hey, I'm left-handed, so this is gonna look pretty good. You know, if you look at Bubba Watson, Bubba turns his hips like 80 degrees, turns his shoulders like 110 degrees. He doesn't have a huge X factor. But the X factor that we're trying to actually find is in the downswing. It's the rotational kind of torque that you can put in your body between the hips and lower body going one way and the upper body being twisted the other way. And one of the things that I find a lot nowadays with what I call the Instagram swing of trying to get shallow and open, you know, who wants to hit a pitching wedge 190? You know, if you're trying to get open with the upper body too much and you start to feel as though you can do all these awesome wrist alignments and open the upper body and all of a sudden your lower body doesn't do anything, that's not going to help you. You're not going to get any more speed from that. We want to try and find a way to get from the top of the swing, how can I get my lower body to turn without my upper body going back? So if you're a golfer that has an issue with coming into the golf ball and all of a sudden you look like this, well, there's a good chance that you've unwound your upper body using your lower body as a platform. This kind of stuff, right? We don't want to do this kind of stuff. Even if you have all this awesome laying off and wrist action on the downswing, if your upper body's driving the motion, it's not going to work. So kinematic sequence, kinetic link, all the stuff that TPI talks about, and my buddy Chris Welch, you know, we're trying to feel as though that from the top of the swing, that the upper body almost stays back. That the upper body stays back here as the lower body starts to go. And if we can start to get the lower body to go better, it's going to start to pull the upper body through. So, watch this. Up to the top. I'm going to try and leave all this stuff right here. Lower body goes. Lower body goes. I'm trying to resist the upper body. And when I finally don't resist the upper body anymore, oh, doesn't that look pretty? So when you come down to the look from down the line of a player holding posture, it has way more to do with what JD and Jim McLean call the X factor on the downswing. Can we get the lower body to go with the upper body staying back? how do you deliver more dynamic loft with the driver? More dynamic loft? Holy moly. That's not really a question I get very much. I mean, how do you deliver more loft? Probably comes from not delivering enough loft. Are you like bunting the driver off the tee box? I mean, I used to play golf in college. We used to play against Talladega College, and I used to play against Jim Dent Jr. And my buddy Steve Monroe. If you're not following Steve Monroe on Instagram, that guy hits it 25 miles. These guys used to have 4-degree Callaway drivers and 1-irons, and I used to see them hit drivers where it would bounce off the front of the tee deck and take off about 290. And I'm talking like 1999 with like a elastic golf ball. These guys used to smash it. So when it comes to adding dynamic loft, I'm going to say that might be a shaft issue. But if you're delivering your driver, which is already on the tee and it's already forward in your stance, and you're delivering not enough loft, then there's a good chance this upper body in the golf club is coming through too far. So as a quick tip, as a quick idea, low hooks, it's all going to come into there. I would say that I would try and get you to feel like you kept your back to the target longer to get this golf club to come down. And what that's going to do is it's going to force a release, right? If I don't turn my chest, my arms run out of space. See how it's releasing? I'm not doing that. It has nowhere else to go. And when that club releases, it adds dynamic loft. But I don't want to kind of throw things into an absolute here. You need a lesson, bro. Favorite golf swing of all time? Man, if you had asked me this question before Victor Hovland made like a quadruple bogey on 18, I'd probably have to say I love Victor's swing. I really like the action that he does. I love everything that's going on with all that. You know, I was a big fan of Trevor Immelman's swing back in the day. It's a little bit different now. Sam Snead, Ben Hogan, Mac O'Grady. You guys know who Mac O'Grady is? I don't know if I'm allowed to use his name, but like that guy rips it. Go to YouTube, check out Mac O'Grady, and let's say Mac O'Grady. But if you want to talk about a golfer who hits the ball awesome today and who's a great person to model, Mike McNary. Look him up. 600 today. Love that guy. That's wicked. Good. So he was 7 under before he made a quad. So it's not like he can't play golf. I mean, the thing with Victor Hovland is there's this thing out there called the rate of closure. It's how much the toe of the club passes the heel, or I'm not going to get into it, whatever. Rate of closure, the club face going like this. And Victor Hovland has been measured as the slowest rate of closure by a long shot, right? By a long shot. Most golfers rotate this glove face at about 2,000 degrees. Victor Hovland's like 600. That's pretty low. That's a big difference. So I would say that Victor Hovland has the best club face control. And if you want to learn a little more about Victor Hovland's swing, hashtag Cobra pattern. Try that one out. What do I think of Jason Day and Chris Como working together? Boy. Chris Como is my hero. Jason Day is one of my favorite golfers, and definitely Jason Day is the best bunker player we've ever seen in the game of golf. I would put him over Luke Donald any day of the week. His short game is phenomenal. I absolutely love his putting. I would say that if he's going to work with Chris, Chris is going to do a whole lot of good things to his swing, from how to move your body better, you know, maybe save his lower back a little bit. But Jason Day is a wonderful guy. I wish him the best, and I think that if he's working with Como, I mean, he's got one of the best guys in the world. I think it's great. I'll have to look at that press conference with Hovland. Guy's a stud. I don't know if you've noticed, like 3 years ago when he came out on tour, he wasn't all that big. Guy's jacked now. He's really taking it seriously. I think he's the young gun to actually look for. He's going to do it. Anything else, guys? Feel like that guy on Saturday Night Live. My Cavarsier's almost done. It's almost time to end the show. All right. I'm going to pack it in. Thanks, guys. Hope you have a good weekend. I'll do this again soon. See ya.